Infrared photography is fast becoming a more accessible method of photography with the increase of infrared converted digital cameras being made available online. Generally, these are normal digital cameras that have been modified to allow infrared light to hit the sensor. But what is infrared light? What is infrared photography? And do you need a fancy new expensive camera to make your own infrared images? Infrared photography is a method of capturing light that our eyes, on the most part, will not allow to pass through to the retina. Our eyes, in a healthy condition, only allow light to pass that falls within the visible light spectrum, like you see on the screen, which includes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. The nanometer or nm values are seen under the colors on the chart and represent the wavelength sizes within the electromagnetic spectrum of light. See here, once we get to violet, you then move on to ultraviolet and then see how the numbers get smaller, which represents the wavelengths which get smaller with higher energy. Let's go to this image quickly, and then you see to this side of the chart we go from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, then ultraviolet represented by the sun, then X-rays, and then gamma rays. Infrared light is different to visible light in that infrared light has longer wavelengths and lower energy, as you can see in the chart, after which you make your way to microwaves and then radio waves. Let's go back to the other image. Visible light falls within wavelengths the size of roughly, and I mean roughly because we're talking about a gradient and we're not talking about hard stops, roughly 380 nanometers to 780 nanometers, but this is generally rounded to 400 nanometers to 750 nanometers. As you can see, infrared light exists beyond that spectrum of visible light. Now, our eyes have layers that protect our retina from infrared light, and we also have instinctual reflexes that prevent us from allowing infrared light to reach our retinas. Though we cannot see infrared light, research states that we can feel infrared light. Normal digital photography doesn't capture infrared light to the digital camera's sensor because these sensors have a filter that stops infrared light from passing through. A digital camera sensor typically has the ability to capture light from roughly between 350 to 1000 nanometers, but they are built with a filter that cuts out the light that falls outside of the visible light spectrum so that our images match what our eyes see and what our brain or our human brains perceive. General film stocks as well are manufactured to capture visible light and not infrared light, unless it's specialized film such as aerochrome, which is no longer made and is therefore rare and very expensive. Now, when it comes to infrared cameras, those cameras don't include that protective layer that I was referring to on the sensor. That layer that's supposed to block infrared light from hitting the sensor, that's not there. So infrared light can come through, specifically near infrared light, not all infrared light. If you only want to capture infrared light to your camera, you need a filter. You get various types of filters. Different filters have different capabilities dependent on what their nanometer cutoff is. At what wavelength of light does the filter stop the light from coming through and hitting the sensor? My camera is a converted full spectrum Panasonic GF3 micro four thirds camera, which I bought on eBay for £169. This made sense for me to get a micro four thirds camera because I have micro four thirds lenses. In particular, I use my trusted LUMIX 12 to 60mm f3.5 to 5.6, which now solely lives with its 550 nanometer orange filter. I paid £29 for the filter from the same seller. If you're at all interested in these types of converted secondhand cameras, there is a seller on eBay that I used. My experience with him was overall positive. I did receive at first a faulty camera, which he took back and replaced, and then he even explained why it was faulty. So it was positive, and I think considering the images that or the new type of photography and exploration that I'm having, I think it's worth the £169 plus £29. At least it was for me. He's got more expensive options as well. So if you're interested, just drop a note below in the comments and I'll share those details with you. This 550 nanometer filter allows some green light as well as yellow, orange, and red, and then also the near infrared light to pass, which makes for images that are unnatural or false in color, but interesting to see. Converting my images to black and white would result in dramatically contrasted images when shooting outside due to skies going dark because the blue is blocked, and this makes for punchy landscapes. And because chlorophyll reflects near infrared light efficiently, plants show up nice and bright in images, which contributes to contrasty outdoor images. But for the most contrast and most dramatic punch, I would need to shoot my outdoor images with a more strict filter, such as an 850 nanometer filter, which cuts out all visible light and shoots pretty much only near infrared light. There is so much more to infrared photography, and I'm sure I'll touch on this topic again with more detail when I have more photos and when I've gained more knowledge. In the meantime, if you want a wealth of knowledge on the topic, check out Rob Shear's channel. Pretty much all of my theoretical knowledge on infrared photography I got from his channel, so do check that out. To get images looking like what you've been seeing from my infrared photography, there is a somewhat annoying set of steps to processing your infrared images, which includes making a DNG profile to adjust your white balance further, and also there is a requirement to switch your color channels. Particularly, you need to switch your red and blue channels if you wish to produce those pink images. Swapping the red and blue channels produces the color contrast that initially drew me to infrared photography. With my 550 nanometer filter, if I shoot in the correct conditions outside, swapping the red and blue channels can result in those leaves that are pink and then the skies that are more towards the aqua-ish or cyan green type of color, which is a nice color swatch, color palette. It's a color contrast that I find appealing. For intense black and white photography, you're going to want to shoot with a more strict or intense filter, such as an 850 nanometer filter. And then typically if you want a saturated image, you'll want to shoot with a more inclusive filter, like a 550 nanometer filter or a chroma filter. Chroma filters create the color profiles that are similar to aerochrome, which a lot of people find attractive, including myself. I haven't shot with that yet. They're quite expensive, those filters, but when the budget allows for it eventually, I'll probably give that a go as well. The reason that you'll end up with a more colorful and saturated image with a 550 nanometer filter as opposed to, for example, a 590 nanometer filter is because the 550 nanometer filter is allowing more colors from the visible light spectrum to pass through the glass to the sensor. A 590 nanometer filter will allow less light from the visible light spectrum to reach your sensor. I'll be sure to cover the processing steps in a future video, but for this video, I wanted to introduce you to the concept of infrared photography, briefly touch on infrared light and how it works with your sensor, and I also wanted to share some of my photos with you. I got this camera about 2 years ago. I've been enjoying it when I have been using it. I haven't been using it much, but in the few instances that I have taken it outside, I have enjoyed the results, mostly. All in all, I have a lot to learn, and this will come with practice. I think the main challenge for me will be learning what scenes produce the best color contrast. Some of these images would be way better off being visualized in true color, no need for infrared, but the more photos you take, the more you will learn. And this is actually becoming what I enjoy most about infrared photography, the learning process. It's no longer all about those weird and wonderful unnatural colors. It's becoming more about the challenge of learning how an image will look after the processing. The more experimental I'm getting, the worse the images are becoming, and that is part of the learning process. And I think to the most part, I think I'll get my best results through shooting those tried and tested scenes, landscapes. But that doesn't mean I won't keep messing up with my experiments, because at some point something cool is bound to happen. Or not, either way, I'm learning the whole way. So let's leave it at that. I hope you found this video useful, informational, entertaining. I hope you enjoyed the photos. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos of this nature. Oh, this is terrible. My neighbor smokes, and that smoke is just getting into the house. It's closing me up. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here, folks. I do appreciate it. Don't forget to keep taking photos, keep making videos, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.